Today we'll talk about how CBT works, understanding it, and use a road rage example toward the end. We're going to talk about the neurology of it as well. So in the last episode we mentioned how CBT helps us reprogram by giving us understanding, techniques, and opportunities to reprogram our brain. Today we'll reveal more about why it's so hard to break habits and negative mental thought processes, where CBT techniques do their amazing work, and we'll finish off with how specific techniques can be used to get back in the driver's seat of your brain with road rage, or with more commonly, a road stress example. In the last episode, I shared an example of where someone honked a car horn while you were driving. You didn't know why they honked, but your emotional brain will begin telling you what it thinks, and how you react will depend on the strength of your decision-making frontal lobe. In our car honking example, we first noticed the beginning of the cycle when we hear the car horn honk. But that's not really the beginning. The beginning is the situation. The situation includes the environmental situation, but just as important is the situation in your mind and body, the mental and physical situation. In this case, the environmental situation includes driving and the traffic situation, where perhaps someone honks or may not even take honking trigger to start the cycle. In CBT, we would call that the activating agent, the A of the ABC approach. More on that in a bit. Additionally, there may be the mental and physical situation in which you're worried or stressed because you're late, while the physical chemical situation involves you're not eating breakfast, so you're hungry, you haven't eaten many colorful vegetables or fish lately, so your brain is poorly nourished and a bit inflamed. And perhaps you're tired because you didn't get a good night's sleep, and your body's achy because you have been sitting too much and not exercising. Wow. So we start to see how planning, eating, drinking, sleeping, and moving your bodies sets the stage for how we will react to a situation. This means that our reactive instinct brainstem is sending strong sensation messages to your emotional feeling limbic system, telling it that something significant is going on. Very little of this information makes it straight to your decision-making frontal lobe. So understanding this is a big secret window into understanding how your brain works and how in the world you could be uninformed about your own brain, what it's doing and what it's doing to you specifically. As a bonus, you recognize that others are dealing with this same disconnect, keeping that in mind as you interact with others throughout your day. At this point in the process, our conscious brain doesn't know why we're having these sensations or whether it's good or bad. Our emotional feeling limbic system considers what has caused these sensations in the past, and likely it's found many vague but powerful memories of negative situations with similar body messages. So it generates the thought that there's a powerful reason to feel irritable emotion in this case. The limbic feeling center passes along that conclusion to the decision-making frontal lobe now. The frontal lobe, if not healthy, strong, and well-trained, will simply accept the limbic recommendation and instruct your body to react and even reinforce the bad emotion and stressful instincts. This reaction may be yelling at the other driver, clenching the steering wheel, negative thoughts, increased heart rate and blood pressure, neck and jaw tension, or other body reactions. This all can lead to headache, more stress, increased ringing or buzzing in the ears, tinnitus, etc. Basically making more of the mental and physical situation that influenced you to react negatively in the first place. Then, guess who learns about all these additional conscious decisions and body sensations? Yes, the reactive instinct and emotional feeling regions. They say, really, this activating event or this environmental situation is definitely the cause for these body sensations and emotions? Okay, I'll act accordingly and remember that for the next time. Then they tell the decision-making frontal lobe this cycle will continue to feed itself until something breaks it. Something breaks the cycle. Although it may feel different, neurologically, this cycle is similar to any habit that you have trouble breaking. The cycle is a well-worn path, but in actuality, it's made of neurons, one connected to the next, with many, many options. If you have trouble breaking the cycle, it's because the connections between certain neurons are very efficient, while the optional connections to other neurons are very inefficient. In fact, it may feel more like a well-paved road with no options for change at all. There are outside interventions like drugs or transcranial magnetic stimulation that can forcefully alter the brain function, but cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, seeks to break the cycle from within by strengthening the decision-making frontal lobe, reinforcing the neuron connections that are helpful, and weakening those that are not helpful. So it becomes easier to make the helpful, healthy choice next time. The power to break the cycle is in altering the neuron chemistry and connections. We alter neuron chemistry and connections by nourishing and exercising them. Nourishing the brain and its neurons is the subject of a whole separate program, which is Synergy's Healthy Brain Program. By properly nourishing the brain, it's much easier to regain control from the reactive instinct survival part of the brain and move on to the emotional and decision-making parts of the brain. But it isn't usually absolutely necessary. So for now, we'll move beyond nourishing the brain to properly exercising the brain to reprogram it properly. Exercising these neurons can be done several ways. The most specific, accepted, and well-researched method is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. CBT is like any physical exercise program involving understanding, techniques, and opportunities or repetition. So number one, understanding. Understanding what you're doing at least well enough to do it correctly. Number two, techniques that specifically isolate the muscle or brain process with the correct amount of effort and recovery periods so you can come back even stronger than before. And number three, opportunities or repetition, which usually involves some type of accountability. There are several different CBT exercises for the frontal lobe of the brain that you could apply in this car honking example. Most of the exercises come well before this trigger moment, and often one technique builds on another. I'll give you an example of the process of CBT in action. For example, if the day before you had taken time to consider when your headache, tinnitus, stress, or anxiety flare up, you may have recalled that morning traffic was one of those times. Then you applied the ABC technique of irrational beliefs, recognizing that the A, activating event of being late plus heavy traffic and the inevitable rude and rushed people you encounter on the road. Then B, the belief or thought that you usually have in a situation, in that situation in particular. And finally, the C, the consequences of the negative thoughts and behaviors that usually result. Then you can take the ABC information and apply the cognitive restructuring technique to consider other, more positive thoughts you could have in that situation. Finally, when you're in that stressful moment, you might apply the STOPP, the stop technique. S for stop, to think. T for take a breath. O for observe the whole situation, the surrounding environment, as well as your body sensations and thoughts. P is to put it in another perspective. And the second P is for the practice what you planned. In this case, the more positive thought or actions you came up with in the cognitive restructuring. That's one example of how you might apply CBT. So, as you go through CBT, you develop understanding, techniques, and opportunities or repetition. It's actually quite simple. And if you apply the techniques regularly, it's very powerful and effective. The process of CBT helps you understand the origin and break the harmful cycle of a situation leading to thoughts or feelings or sensations, both mental and physical, so that you're not a slave to them any longer. It's really that simple. Yes, it takes a little learning and certainly practice, but in the following episodes I'll answer the questions: is it something that I can do on my own? And does it work well does it work as well on your own as it does with the therapist? And does it work for anxiety, stress, and tinnitus? If so, how well? So for now, I'd like to know your thoughts. So please leave a comment or request a review of a particular research study. To stay connected to tinnitus research and therapy applications, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And to be notified of new therapies and video postings, click the bell and subscribe to our newsletter at tinnitussynergy.com. Thank you, and may God bless you.